All right, guys, today we got a 2011 Land Rover L322. And this is a strange problem. As you notice, I got my finger on the start button. It's got two keys it came with, and if I release the start button, I'm not sure right now because it finally stopped doing it. I would have the flashes just constantly on. I was able to finally turn them off by holding the start button long enough and hitting that. And let's see if I let go of the start button, if it turns off the ignition. That's what it was doing. Now the ignition is staying on. I've held it down for a good almost a minute or so, so the ignition stayed on. What would happen is, as soon as I hit the start button, I can hear the release for the shifter, and then the ignition would automatically just go right back off. So you hit the start button, it'll come on the ignition just like this, and then go off, and you'll hear this lock back. And I was able to do it really quick, and look at that. They came back on. The flashes came back on by themselves. Something is very strange with this car. So we're gonna go ahead and hold on. We're gonna go ahead and scan it and see what kind of codes we get since we have the ignition on. So we're gonna do a health report. I was gonna scan through all the modules and let's see what we get. I'll bring you back. So ahí está. So the initial codes, as you can see, the TCM has some codes.
No tiene la emergencia, se está yendo para adelante.
El carro, oh, está en. El carro está en neutro, por eso. Déjame ponerle en park. So the flashers came back on, as you can see. So here's the codes. Wheel speed sensor, steering angle sensor, communication with the BCM. That's definitely interesting because the BCM, from these symptoms, makes me think of the BCM. SRS module. Instrument cluster. Instrument cluster is very important on this vehicle, I believe. Lost communication with the ECM. These are all permanent codes. Well, that's permanent code. That's important. Okay. See if it BCM intermittent. This is crazy, man. I don't know what is going on with this car. I don't smell any kind of signs of water, but it could be a water issue as well. BCM passive key intermittent. So I think we're going to focus on the BCM and the cluster. First thing I'm going to do is save the report of this, all of this, and then I'm going to erase the codes and see what comes back. Codes and everything, man. We had a low power issue too, so that can cause so many of these codes to come up. So I'm going to save this. All right, main codes that came back: lost communication with the engine computer, instrument cluster as well. It's got, didn't complain about the BCM. Now the ECM problem could be bad ECM. I have no idea the history of this car. I believe this came from auction. I don't know. And they cut some wires trying to troubleshoot. So we could have a problem with the powers to ground. So we're going to replace those wires and see from there. All right, we connected the cable back, and we're still in the same situation. We're dealing with battery voltage issues, but the primary issue with this vehicle is this: no communication with the engine computer. So we need to check powers and grounds to the ECM and find out what is going on there. Okay guys, I went ahead and hooked up the ultimate CANBUS tester. By the way guys, on sale right now. We have 12,000 subscribers on the channel. Discount code given back to the community, $20 off. Head over to globalcommerceca.com, pick yours up today. Invaluable tool. Okay, I'm connected using the CAN lines. These are the CAN lines, by the way, 45 and 55, I believe. I'll show that to you. Either way, the brown and yellow is CAN high, and the black and yellow is CAN low. So over your pairs, just go over with some liquid electrical tape to clear that up. And we're connected to a common ground here for the ultimate CANBUS tester. And we've got fair readings on the CANBUS. At the top is our CAN high, below is our CAN low. And I've connected my scanner, and I can actually now communicate with the network. Okay, so I can communicate. Actually, I try to communicate with the engine computer, I get a failure. I try to communicate with the transmission computer, I can enter the transmission computer. So that tells me the CAN line communication going back to the network is good here. That is not our problem right here. So our problem is going to be two things. Either the powers and grounds to this computer, there's an issue, and I actually tested them, by the way. These two right here are your main power feeds coming in. As you can see, I'm going to show you these brown cables. We have power. It powers up a test light. And there's 3 grounds, these black cables here, and those 3 grounds are good as well. I'm going to show you the diagram if you haven't seen that already. There's also an ignition feed that comes in to power up the ECM, and that is a white with a red stripe. I'm going to show you that as well, and that we also have power. So I've got to check to see if there are any other feeds for this ECM, and if they are not, I'm going to call this that there's a bad ECM here, because the communication lines are good, my powers are good, my grounds are good. There's no reason why this unit should not be communicating unless it itself is bad. Or it could be brought down by possibly some kind of feed. Some ECMs, they've got like the 5 volts. In fact, the easy way to know, I'm going to remove the engine side connector, right? So this is our body side. So let's say there's some 5 volt reference sensor bringing down and locking up the computer. If we pull this, that should eliminate it. So let's give that a try. So we're removing the other side, and I'm going to see if that will restore communication with the ECM. Okay guys, there was actually a, all right guys, so this orange cable with a yellow stripe is a 5 volt reference sensor coming from the PCM. I went ahead and cut it to eliminate any possible issue where a sensor could have been bringing down that 5 volt reference and therefore bringing down the ECM, and we still have no 5 volt reference and still no communication with the engine computer. And we have our powers and grounds. So at this point, I'm going to call this as a bad ECM, and we're going to need to get a replacement ECM to continue this Diag. So this is going to be part 1 of the Diag. Definitely stay tuned for part 2 of this, because this is crazy. I believe there might be some other issues with this vehicle, but we got to definitely first get communication with the ECM before we continue. That's step 1. I may have called this a little bit too soon. I had my guy double check the cable, which is pin 17, which gets ignition switch power, because the customer here actually cut a red and white wire, and I assumed that wire showed power, and I assumed that was it. Now I actually found it, and it was not the cable they cut at all. So right now I'm going to have him inject power because it's not showing any power. Dale corriente! So he's going to inject power, and now let's see. Now I can enter the ECM, guys. Failed to read DTCs. Let me try that again. Version information. It can see some stuff. Let's see. Let me see how the car responds now if I turn it off. Then on. Let me try to start it. It will not crank. Still have the flashing lights. Let's see if I can read codes. Huh? No. Read data stream. Let's see what it says. In fact, I'm going to clear the codes, all the old codes, and see. Then we can no data stream. There might still be some issue going on here because we can enter the computer, but it's acting kind of strange because we should be able to read some codes, right? So let me go ahead and do a full scan, and then I'm going to erase all the codes now. So I'm erasing all the codes now, and let's see what we get. All right, so we have a TCM lost communication with ECM permanent code, right? ECM engine crank authorization. Okay, that's interesting. We got to check on that. And the ECM still shows no codes. And there it is. TC. What is this? This thing is going crazy, man. Anyway, let me enter again the engine computer and let's see if we can see anything. Still, there's something strange about this computer, man. Let's see this version information. I don't understand why I can't read anything. I feel like there's an issue with this computer. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to restore the 5 volts cable, and then let me turn this off. And then we're going to test again. You see this red and white cable? We repaired this cable. The customer cut this cable testing. I guess he assumed that was the cable, but that is not even the cable at all. The cable that is responsible for this is this red and white cable right here, right? This is the ignition cable right here. It's way on this side. So he cut that cable probably thinking it was this cable. And this is what, right now, by the way, there's a fault with this circuit because the ignition, this cable is not getting power to power on the ECM. We manually injected power to, so I could actually communicate with this ECM. So now I'm going to check this circuit and see where this goes to and where our fault could be on this ignition circuit. All right, that fuse for cable 17 is supposed to be in here, so we got to find it and test it. All right, we found fuse 19, which if you can see the position, where is it at? 18, there's 19. All right, so fuse 19 is good, but it looks like people have been in here. There's a couple of connectors we found disconnected, as you can see there. So I don't know what is going on yet, but we've got to get to the connector C2244 because I believe that connector might show us what's going on with this truck, at least with this issue, because power is at the fuse box, but it is not reaching to the engine computer, and that only thing in between is that C2244 connector. So we'd have to find that and see if it's actually making contact. So that's the next step. On the cable, and it does have power. Vamos a ir para la computadora ahí para ver si está llegando allá. So that is the actual connector. And I'll show you the chart if you haven't seen that already. And we do have power going out to the engine computer, so we should have power. If we don't, that means this wire is damaged. The other side, we got power, so we don't have power at the ECM. Bad cable. Okay. All right, guys, we went ahead and pulled the connector to reseat it and also check for any pins. And here we're going to go ahead and repair the cable. We added a brand new cable because the customer opted to do this instead of replacing it. And I've also went in through just normal OBD to communicate with the computer. Yeah, as you can see, the readings are very strange. I just feel like there's something wrong. It could be the firmware on this ECM. So I had another tech to go ahead and try to reprogram this ECM. And if it's still no good, we're going to replace the ECM. And we'll probably continue on part 2, guys. So stay tuned.